Hello everyone, hope you are good and be happy always. Once again, welcome to Shachi's Academy, and today we will discuss the topic of budget deficit. This is the final part of our video that is for budget, and this is video number 3 for that budget. Okay, so by budget deficit, what do we mean? And what do we mean by deficit itself? Deficit means deficiency of something or shortage of something. Take for example, when I am earning only 20,000 rupees and I am spending 40,000 rupees. So what is the difference between that? 20,000 rupees, that is my deficit because I am earning less and spending more. In the same manner, where the revenue of government is lesser than expenditure of government, then deficit occurs. Why? Because it has to spend more than, it has to do more expenditure than its revenue, and in that case there is deficit of revenue, right? So we have to see here what's the definition of budget deficit. Here it is. Budget deficit refers to a situation. It is a situation, it's a condition when budget expenditures of government are more than budget receipts. When budget expenditures, that means spendings of government on different heads of welfare and other expenditures on defense and agriculture is more than what? Budget receipts. Both your capital and revenue receipts. As we have seen, receipts are of two types, capital and revenue receipts, and in the same manner expenditures are also of two types, revenue and capital, right? So here we have taken, if our expenditure is 1000 crores and our revenue is only 500 crores, so what is the deficit? 1000 crore minus 500 crore is the budget deficit, is your 500 crore, and the formula or the equation you can say for budget deficit is BD is equal to BE minus BR. Now what is BD? BD is budget deficit, abbreviated form. See, always remember all these equations, or you may say formulas for measuring different phenomena in economics are not exactly formulas. They are just abbreviated short forms. Okay, so abbreviation has been done. See, budget deficit is BD, budget expenditure is BE, and budget revenue is BR. So this is nothing to worry about or fear about. This is very simple. Now here budget expenditure is more than budget revenue. For more sign you put this sign, okay, like a bracket, okay, like an angular bracket, okay. So here it is more than sign, so budget expenditure, here expenditure spendings are more. Say for example 1000 crores and revenue is only 500 crores, so we have a deficit of 500 crore again. So here budget expenditure is more. Here it's simple. Now for that we have used the code BD Weber. That means BD Weber is budget deficit is equal to BE budget expenditure minus BR. Okay. Then this budget deficit consists of or comprises of three types of deficit. What are they? Revenue deficit RD, fiscal deficit FD, and primary deficit PD. And for that is the code is RFP. Revenue, fiscal, primary. What are three types of deficits? Revenue, fiscal, primary, RFP. Remember it and note down it in your notebooks or write on your book also, as you wish, right? Then number one is revenue deficit. What is revenue deficit? As the name suggests, revenue only. There is no capital receipt, no capital expenditure. So we will consider only revenue for revenue deficit. It is the excess of revenue expenditure over revenue receipts. Excess of what? Expenditure again. When expenditure is more, always remember in the condition of deficit, expenditure is always more than revenue. So here again revenue expenditures are more than revenue receipts. Formula for that is RD is equal to RE minus RR. R for revenue, revenue deficits is equal to revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. Again simple. Here also like this, business, here budget expenditure was more and here revenue expenditure is more. Again expenditure is more, here also expenditure was more, expenditure is more than revenue, right? Simple. And R is the first form. Here this, see, all these formulas are similar to one another. All the differences, first alphabet will change or first name will change, right? Then what are the effects of that? Number one is cut welfare expenditure like subsidies. When there is revenue deficit, government will cut some of the subsidies given to poor sections of the society, or for the support of production in industrial sectors that are newly set up industries, cottage industries or small scale industries, etc. It won't be giving subsidies to the production purposes, or maybe subsidies for agriculture, subsidies for education, or unemployment allowances may be cut off, right? Then borrowing and low credit worthiness of the government. So to cover this deficit, revenue deficit, what will government resort to? It will borrow from your home country, that is domestic people, or abroad, or from some financial institutions that are established or of international repute. So like World Bank and all, it will have to borrow. When it will borrow, its credit worthiness will decrease or not. If I keep on borrowing from you, give me 100 rupees, give me 2000 rupees, give me 1000 rupees. So again and again, if I keep on borrowing from you, what will happen to my credit worthiness? See, you will say that, see, she is not financially strong and she is not credit worthy. Okay. Then disinvestment in that row, if government keeps on having this revenue deficit, it will have to disinvest in its public sector enterprises, like it will have to share, it will have to sell the shares of its public sector enterprises like BHEL, GAIL, SAIL and all. These are public sector enterprises and the Navratnas. So it will have to disinvestment in those sectors to raise money, right? Then next, number 2 is fiscal deficit. What is fiscal deficit? Just remember one thing. Revenue deficit is just the shortage of revenue. Here, fiscal deficit tells you how much you will have to borrow. It is not exactly deficit, you can say. It is the extent you have to borrow, the amount you have to borrow to cover this deficit. And for that, what you need to do, the formula for this is, let's discuss definition first. What is fiscal deficit? It is excess of total expenditure over total receipts other than borrowings. Borrowings, we'll have to find out the borrowings, so we are not including borrowings over here. We'll have to find out borrowings. Okay, so it is other than borrowings. And what is total expenditure is equal to? Revenue plus capital. Revenue is expenditure plus capital expenditure is your total expenditure in your economy. In the same manner, what are the total receipts comprised of? It is revenue receipts plus capital receipts. So R plus C at both the points here. Then borrowing. Here FD is equal to total expenditure minus total receipts. And what is total expenditure? Revenue plus capital. And what is total receipts? Again, revenue plus capital. Simple formula, expenditure minus receipts. In the same manner, here also expenditure minus receipts. Here also expenditure minus receipts, right? Other than borrowings, you just have to add one point over here, other than borrowings, right? Okay, because it will estimate your borrowings. So, it is the estimation of total borrowings from which sources? Government has to borrow from different sources, and for that we have framed a code RAN. R for RBI in India, because different nations have different central banks. Like America is having Federal Reserve, so America will have to borrow from Federal Reserve, not RBI. So always remember this. This is a Central Bank of India. So we are discussing this topic in context of India. So don't misunderstand that. Okay, RBI. Abroad like IMF, International Monetary Fund, or World Bank and all, it will have to borrow from them. Net borrowing from home, like NSC, National Savings Certificates, will be sold to people to raise money, or treasury bills will be sold to people, and some other methods are there to raise money by the government. So in that manner, government will raise money in form of 3 sources of borrowing, and that is RAN. It will have to run here and there. So it ran to borrow money from different sources. But what is the effect of this borrowing on government? See, effects of borrowing. When government keeps on covering up this fiscal deficit and revenue deficits and all, if we keep on borrowing, then what will happen? Inflationary spiral will happen, because it will keep on spending, it will keep on increasing its expenditure on different heads of education, or you may say agriculture, defense, and every childhood and all, mortality rates and decreasing mortality rates and all, mother care and all. So what will happen? People will have more money. Unemployment allowances and public distribution shops, subsidies on production, subsidies on petrol and diesel. It will give more money in hands of people. People will demand more, and in this manner it will increase the prices of the extant commodities, and it will increase inflationary spiral, as we have discussed in our topic of inflationary gap, right? So it will lead to inflationary spiral. Then national debt. it will increase the debt on your nation. How? Because it is borrowing from other nations also. It will increase your national debt. Then vicious circle of FD, that is fiscal deficit and low GDP growth. This FD will lead to low GDP growth because it is not leading to any type of real production process, but only just distributing money in form of subsidies and all. Crowding out. Crowding out means when government keeps on borrowing from different sources like RBI, from different banks, from abroad, from net borrowing, home, etc. So there are no sources left for private sector to get borrowings. Private sector is left nowhere to borrow. It can't borrow from any source. So what will happen? Lesser amount of funds are left for public sector to borrow, and they can't invest in economy. So if I'm a businessman, I can't borrow from anywhere because government is keeping on borrowing from here and there. So government has to borrow from here and there, and no funds are left for private sector to invest. So in that manner, lower GDP will be there. Okay, so this is the ill effects of your borrowing or your fiscal deficit. So what is fiscal deficit? It is the estimation of total borrowings from different sources by the government. Next, primary deficit. What is that? First, we try to understand here primary deficit. It is just the amount that you have to borrow for current year, nothing else. It's the amount that you have to borrow for current year deficits, right? Here, FD, fiscal deficit is total borrowing, right? For past years, and it does borrowing for two purposes. One is to pay the interest on previous loans which it has taken in previous years. Take for example, every year if government takes loans, and in 30 years it will have many types of loans, or in 10 years you will see it will have many types of loans, and on those loans, like you people have to pay interest on loans that you have taken from banks for purchase of house and etc. In the same manner, government also have to pay loans on different loans it has taken from different international monetary funds or anywhere. So it has to pay interest. So government is borrowing for interest payment and for covering up the revenue deficit, and deficit is its own things. So borrowing is for two purposes. Now PD is equal to, that means primary deficit is equal to FD minus interest payment. So whole borrowing minus your interest payment is equal to PD, that means primary deficit. That means what are you borrowing for current year, this year, right? For 2020 if you say, so what will happen here? Total fiscal deficit, whatever government is intending to borrow minus the interest payment for previous loans, you will get primary deficit, right? Now next topic is balanced budget. What is balanced budget? When two sides are equal, two sides on any weight, on any weighing machines are equal, then it means balance. In the same manner, what is balanced budget? When its revenue and expenditure are equal, that means it is balanced. Okay, so if you are getting revenue of 1000 crore rupees, and if you are spending 1000 crore rupees, that means your budget is balanced, the same as 1000 crore equal. Now what are the merits of balanced budget? No wasteful expenditure. There is no waste in expenditure. Government is not unnecessarily spending on any of the item. It is just doing the necessary expenditure. So no wasteful expenditure, no wastage of money is there. Then fiscal discipline is there. Government is spending on most important items, and it is not just spending here and there mindlessly. So what is happening? Its credit worthiness is there. It does not have to borrow from anywhere, and its credit worthiness remains intact. Okay, so it's in powerful position. Now what are the demerits? But again, it has demerits also. No solution for unemployment. What happened in Great Depression during 1930s? It happened that government was following a regime of balanced budget. It did not borrow from anywhere. It did not spend on public welfare, and unemployment kept on rising, and it led to Great Depression because people did not have money to buy anything. People were unemployed, and it led to Great Depression of 1930s. Now, not good for LDCs. What are LDC? Less developed countries. Less developed countries or developing countries can't afford to have a balanced budget because they have to spend on different welfare activities. They have to increase employment in their economy. So balanced budget is not good for them. Okay, then if your budget is not balanced, it is unbalanced. Here, an unbalanced budget is of two types. Number one is surplus budget, and number two is your deficit budget. What is surplus budget? See, Always remember when government is having surplus budget. And what is budget, by the way? Budget is estimated revenue and expenditure of a government for the coming year, coming 1 year. Take for example, budget 2020 and 21 is what? It is estimation of revenue and expenditure of the government in the coming year. It is not what has happened earlier this year, in the past year, but what will happen in the coming year. So here it is estimated. We have done the estimation that we will have to spend on such and such heads. So it is estimation of government revenue. When we are intending to get more revenue from public, that is surplus budget. So if government is imposing more taxation on you, it is imposing more, it is trying to take more revenue from you, that is known as surplus budget. That means it is increasing sources of its revenue. Okay, so here estimated revenue is greater than estimated expenditure. What are the sources of revenue? Tax and non-tax revenues and all. So here, what are the merits of this surplus budget? Corrects inflation by lowering aggregate demand. When, take for example, when government is trying to increase its revenue, it will increase taxes on people, income tax, indirect tax, direct tax, everything, ad valorem and specific duties. It will increase every type of tax on people. So what will happen to people? Purchasing power in the hands of people will decrease and they will demand less, and in that manner inflation will decrease, right? Prices will decrease and inflation will decrease. Okay. By high revenue collection, I have explained this. Okay. Demerit. What is the demerit? Shortcoming of this surplus budget. Not good in depression. If there is depression already existing in your economy, then this budget, surplus budget, is not at all good for you. Why? Because it will take away the existing purchasing power, whatever purchasing power people are having in their hands, and it will curtail their necessary expenditure also, and it will lead to unemployment in economy. Okay, because it will lead to lesser demand, lesser aggregate demand will lead to lesser production, and lesser production means lot of people will be thrown out of their jobs and people will become unemployed. So surplus budget is not good for economy when there is depression in economy. Next, deficit budget. For deficit budget, here your estimated government expenditure is greater than the sources of revenue, estimated sources of revenue that government is intending to get from people. So here expenditure is more than revenue. It's the same like your budget deficit. Okay, deficit budget is there. Favored by J.M. Keynes. So John Maynard Keynes, J.M. Keynes, who is considered as the father, is called the father of macroeconomics. He always considered deficit budget as a good budget. Why? Because here government is spending more on people. It is investing more on people. It is investing on development of industries, infrastructure. It is paying subsidies to people, increasing aggregate demand. In that manner, it is trying to increase production and employment in economy. So it was favored by J.M. Keynes. Why? Because his economics is of depression economics, because there was depression at that time in America and he insisted on deficit budget. So that is the cause of that. Okay. So what is the merit? Corrects depression. I told you J.M. Keynes was existing during the times of depression. So he always tried to correct the depression. So deficit budget is good for depression. When there is depression, government tries to spend more, invest on different types of subsidies and increase aggregate demand. In that manner, your inflation will increase, or you can say employment will increase and people will have more purchasing power in their hands, they will spend more and it will again increase aggregate demand, again employment will increase and there will be prosperity in economy, right? Inducing investment, consumption, expenditure. Your higher expenditure by government will induce more consumption expenditure by people and people will demand more. Demerit, not good during inflation. During inflation it is not good at all. Okay, and inflationary gap, it will lead to inflationary gap and wage price spiral that we have discussed before. And also see, when prices increase, laborers demand more wages, and when again prices increase, they again demand more wages. In that case, spiral keeps on moving of higher wages and higher prices, so it leads to wage price spiral. So in that case, that is the demerit, most common demerit of deficit budget. So we have discussed all the points very clearly. I have made the codes for you. You can remember them. Bad bearer for your budget deficit. Red for your revenue deficit. Here borrowing we have REN. R plus C is revenue plus capital, as you remember. Then we have your primary deficit, FEDEP. Okay, so it is very easy to remember, and estimated is for the coming year of the budget. So it is very easy to understand. Though although economics is technical, but it can be understood with the help of certain codes and a little, you can say, concentration in your studies. So always try to concentrate in economics, and this is considered to be the difficult topic, but if you study it nicely and thoroughly, it will be easier than anything else, believe me. So take a screenshot of this. You can always zoom in and see for the detailing of the points, and all these things are given in your book of Tiagen VK Ori. I have referred to that book, and keep on studying, be happy, make merriments, but always try to study hard, because studies are going to make you good in life. It will going to make you prosper in life. You will grow and develop in society and gain strength of brain, and you can earn anything in this world and attain any happiness in this world by being happy and educated. So be educated, study hard, and chuck in exams. Just score very good percentage of marks in exams. So be well, be nice, be happy. Thank you so much.